back, we included the meeting notes from the last meeting on January 5th. We can pass those around the room if you didn't pick those up. That's useful because it has the list of the issues we want this series of meetings to cover. And we are starting right at the appropriate first one, which is citing the CAD zone. What are the design considerations, the modeling necessary, the field work needed to figure out what is a good location for potential CAD zone. So that's where we're starting today. But before we go any further, I want to do introductions. Steve is here, so we all know when we're having a discussion. What's going on? So again, Mark Rasmussen with the Budget Stakeholders.
Rob Shields, Marine Fisheries. Neil Churchill, Master Fisheries and Fisheries.
Jeff Lindbergh Jr., Lindbergh Marine.
Alan Grandi, Harvard with Seafood.
Jeff Lindbergh Sr., Lindbergh Marine.
Bob Gardner, Bayline Boatyard.
And Eisenmenger, Community Rowing.
Greg Harper, Apex Companies.
Zach Ruder, EMI.
Ted Pickering, Apex.
Joe Corner with the Master EP.
Lane Stanley with EPA.
Jim Murphy from EPA.
Sorry, Joe Myers with Apex Company.
Jake Warren from Apex.
Alan Stubbs with the Mass Seaport Council.
Ken Heim, Army Corps.
Dave Letter, I'm new project manager for EPA.
Rachel Jacobo with the Buzzards Bay Coalition. Kelsey O'Neill with the EPA.
Chuck Dade, active citizen.
Dennis Dan, Consumer Citizen.
Mark Kaveh, Jacobs Engineering.
Paul Rue, Corps of Engineers.
Megan Clifford, Jay Cashman.
Bob Shewack with the EPA.
Mark Brown, local resident with technical background in contaminated sediment management.
Tom Fredette, Engineer Research and Development Center, Corps of Engineers.
Ed Washburn, Harbor Development Commission.
Frank Poland, I'm the technical consultant to Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Paul Crafty, I'm SDP and chair of the State Enhanced Remedy Committee.
I'm Joe Corn again.
Ed Rivera, president of HAN.
All right. You got everybody?
Dave Peterson, EPA.
Okay, great. We are officially ahead of schedule. So with that, I want to jump right into it and get Dave Lederer to talk us through procedure and where we're at with how this comes together from phase and stuff. So, Dave.
You're supposed to pick it up. I'm going to try to do it this way. If anybody cannot see what's on the screen, then kind of just feel free to make me one way or the other. I'm Dave Lederer. I'm the new EPA project manager for the CAD project. A very small but significant part of the overall New Bedford Harbor project. Lane Stanley's still here working on a lot of the rest. We came today to talk about a lot of topics. The pile of slides I have here first that I'm going to present covers a lot of ground and it's a lot of background. A lot of people here have heard and seen a lot of this before. We do have new people each time, so I did want to include them. But what I'm hoping to do, and what I intend to do, is just kind of whiz through most of them and just make a few points here and there. If people have questions about what's on the slides, you can talk to me about it after the meeting or when we get to question time. And also, all these slides will be put up on the EPA's website at the conclusion of the meeting. I would guess it'll be, Kelsey, would you say later this week?
Yeah, it might be early next week.
Early next week, probably. So we have a lot of topics to cover today. I'm going to talk a bit about the overview, planning process, and management. And Washburn is going to talk about the HDC's role. Chet Myers and Apex is going to talk about what the technical considerations are, what you need to know to design one of these CAD cells. Tom Fredette and Ken Heim are here from the Corps of Engineers to talk about what he understood from the last meeting is a major concern of the community is the potential for contamination to escape from the CAD cell, alter construction afterward. Chet will come back on and talk about what the status of our design is and talk about some of the data that's been collected. And at the end, just a little bit of talk about permitting compliance, and we're going to tee up what the concerns are, air monitoring for future meetings. Just to, again, in the overview, just to reiterate, all the information that you can see today, these slides will be put on our website, which is epa.gov/NBH. So you can look there for more information as we proceed through. Just in general, the gradient, meaning how we go from a very high concentration to a low concentration, the highest concentrations in the harbor of PCBs are located near the Aerobox facility, which was the source of most of what we see in the harbor today. Obviously, the mills come down now, and over time, that facility will be addressed under the state authority, but that's another phase of part of the project. But as you can see, these red and yellow orange areas are in excess, the red areas are in excess of 4,000 parts per million. The material we're dealing with in the CAD cell is only mostly in the lower harbor, between Route 6 Bridge, I'm sorry, the hurricane barrier and the 195 bridge, mostly. There's a small area on the other side. But the highest concentrations we'll be dealing with will be a very small fraction of what we're seeing by Aerobox. Again, this is all the sediment that the 1998 record of decision document EPA signed had to be dealt with, and again, most of it is up in the northern part of the harbor. The highest concentrations are in the northern part of the harbor, in the upper harbor, and the concentrations are much lower in the lower harbor, where we're concerned about in this part of the project. The orange areas are the areas, as I mentioned, that are going to be dealt with under the CAD cell project. As you can see, it's mostly in this area. So one thing I want to emphasize is when we finish this CAD cell project, all the sediment work under the Superfund program, that is the hazardous waste program, not the enhanced remedy, we can talk about that during the question time. In the working harbor will be basically dealt with. We're not having that situation continue. Just again, to make the point, this is a slide I put together about the relative volumes and concentrations. As we proceeded through the project, through these many years, we started with the pilot study in the late 80s, and all during the period from the pilot study through the hotspot remedy, which was the excavation of material very close to Aerobox, we dredged about 40,000 cubic yards. The amount of pounds of PCBs removed at a minimum around 134. That is probably an extremely low estimate. That's based on a 1989 estimate of what was in the hotspot alone. In reality, this number probably, and I'm going to try to refine it, is probably closer to 200,000 or maybe. But that's a low end estimate. The annual dredging program was started in 2004. So far, we've dredged about 210,000 yards. It's 5 times more. And we've removed a smaller volume of total PCBs. We're taking less contaminated areas, larger amounts of sediment, with less PCBs in each cubic yard. The state enhanced remedy that the state is implementing, and all this material has been disposed of in CAD cells already, right outside the window here. They've collected about 167,000 cubic yards, so the same order of magnitude. But you can see there's only 9,000 cubic yards of PCBs in that area. Pounds, excuse me, pounds.
2.5 tons.
So again, our future CAD cells, again, ramping up, will be about an estimated volume of about 300,000 cubic yards, and we're estimating a similar amount of PCBs to be in this volume that's almost twice as high. So as we are advancing further south, we're getting to bigger volumes and smaller amounts of pounds per volume disposed. This next slide makes basically the same point, but also adds this point at the bottom that we're estimating, based on our flux study that was completed not long ago, that every year about 98 pounds of PCBs leave the harbor through the hurricane barrier and go out into Buzzards Bay. So when we complete the CAD cell project, we should remove the vast majority of the poundage in the lower harbor that is the source of that flux out to the sea. Of course, we will still be left with this material to deal with in the inner harbor. So basically, in 2010, EPA posed and selected the CAD cell through an explanation of significant differences, which is basically just as it indicates, an explanation of why we changed course with regard to the record decision that was made previously in 1998. So basically, the decision was that we would excavate that 300,000 yards of more lightly contaminated material and dispose of that in a CAD cell in the lower harbor. The lower harbor CAD cell, LHCC. You'll see that acronym. If anyone hears an acronym they do not understand, please stop me. So this is the outline of the CAD cell project. We're going to dredge about 300,000 cubic yards. The levels, again, compared to the upper harbor, that hotspot area, much lower, between 50 and 190 parts per million. We will be disposing of it in a confined aquatic disposal cell. I'll talk a little bit more about what that is. It's basically, it's a hole in the harbor. It will be approximately 50 feet deep and a square, we're guessing roughly what, 650 on a side, feet on a side? In rough terms, we haven't. And that would be covered when it is filled with a 3 foot high, a 3 foot thick sand cap to cover the consolidated material. And this is the basic, let's skip that slide. This is basically in cartoon form what that will look like. Basically, we'll excavate the top material. That will be disposed of probably in another, somewhere else, probably in another CAD cell. Then the sand and gravel will be excavated, contaminated material put in, and a cap put on top once it's full. The ESD found that this could be safely implemented based on 4 lines of evidence. And basically, that the 4 lines were that already the ecological quality has improved because of the state's CAD cells that have been installed for the navigational dredging that's been going on these many years. The state and the city, HDC, have constructed 3 CAD cells, and that's all been done successfully. EPA, in fact, went back and monitored water quality in the area around the CAD cell construction and found that both the air and water quality were not really impacted by the construction of it. So basically, that combined with modeling that we've done and a monitoring of our underwater cap outside the hurricane barrier, which is another side project to this, and I can talk about that with people if they have questions about that after the meeting, since I do have quite a few slides, was the basis for the finding that the CAD cell would be protected. So again, the benefits to New Bedford Harbor and the community are that the cleanup of the sediment, the non-navigational sediment, that is sediment above 50 parts per million, which is what Superfund program is covering, will be complete. And that would mean that 80% of the land area of the harbor, that is, just to be clear, it's not 80% of the PCBs in the harbor, 80% of the land area of the harbor, everything up roughly to the 195 bridge would be done with Superfund. Superfund would be a factor in sediment cleanup from that point on, in just a few years. We would see continued improvements in ecology and the flux, again, I talked about before, of PCBs through the hurricane barrier to the sea would be decreased. So, how to implement this? That's sort of the planning section of this. As the Harbor Development Commission has a lot of experience with navigational CAD cell construction, we decided that we would sign a cooperative agreement with them and fund the construction of the CAD cell. And Washburn will talk about that in a minute, about their role in this whole project. So that's how the project is being advanced. So again, just talk about the navigational dredging very quickly. That was authorized by our record of decision in 1998, which was the original decision for this, the entire project for what we call Operable Unit 1. And it allowed for streamlined navigational dredging of the harbor, and that led to the construction of the three CAD cells that the Harbor Commission's constructed, and the navigational dredging of the harbor that keeps the commercial fishing fleet going. Following that, in 2002 and 2003, the original harbor plan and what's called the dredge material management plan was put together by the state, and that was, again, done with public comment, and that authorized the construction and okayed the construction of the CAD cells in what they call the PIN area, right? Pope's Island North. That's another acronym that you may see from place to place. So, again, advancing forward to 2010, the Harbor Commission at Fairhaven adopted a master plan for the harbor that also reiterated that the CAD cell area would be in this Pope Island North area. And finally, in 2011, the EPA decided to construct its own CAD cell in that state-approved area. So this is the area that was selected, and these three areas, these three blobs you see here, those are the three CAD cells that have already been constructed by the Harbor Development Commission.
Sorry, the two square,
These are the two CAD cells, and this is what's referred to as, what do you guys call this again?
that's not, we intending to indicate that that's the area where Apex is primarily working, Cora?
That's the area that's currently authorized for CAD cells to be constructed based on the state's permitting process.
If we ran a perimeter around those three, sort of a thing.
The red is the area. That's-
Oh, the red, sorry.
The red is authorized by the state.
Yeah.
Under the.
Right. Clear.
Okay. So again, management structure of the project.
It's okay.
I will apologize to the DEP for not being on the slide. It's basically a function of the fact that I'm not good at PowerPoint. I was trying to add you guys yesterday. I intended, but Paul Crafty and Joe are here from the state, but they are of course at the top of the chart with me. And Washburn is here, who's the acting executive director of HTC. They'll be implementing the construction of the cell. And this is the project timeline that we have at this point. We are basically trying to advance the design. Not all of the data that's been collected has been finalized, and we don't have it all. Chad will talk more about when we expect to have all the data.
I can't read this. Can you at least give an indication of what they are?
I'm almost getting to that. I understand that. We have that. Sorry. Basically, the design is being advanced in the next, basically, we were hoping to wrap up the design by the end of April. Basically, what this involves is the design of a CAD cell, which is basically digging a hole and determining what the proper materials and side slopes would be. So, with having said,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
One of the things that we're going to come back to, I guess, when we get into the design, there's a question that came up in review last time about the project sequencing and the impact of that on the size of the hole. There was some talk about if we could do the whole thing in a year. Well, we have to now wait for materials to consolidate before we can. We worry about surging, and we worry about a variety of issues filling up the hole. So maybe if we do it in a year, we got to build a bigger hole. If we had 10 years to do it, we could have 300,000 cubic yard capacity will do the job for us. No bulking and no surging. So
There's
there
gonna
are,
be a coordination issue between, we haven't actually entered full design at this point, and to make things clear, we haven't cited the location of the CAD cell either, and one of the things that we're gonna present today is the data that's been collected to date, and the potential locations that are currently under investigation to make a determination. I didn't wanna make that determination before we have the public meeting and discuss it.
well, the point of the comment is, or my comment,
Yep.
is that there are certainly some engineering considerations, digging a hole, sidebank stability and the rest. But there are also some operational and financial considerations that go into this that we also care about.
And that's gonna be an interaction between EPA and their schedule for regard to how quickly they plan on dredging and placing material, as well as the actual design of the CAD cell. So it's gonna be sort of, the decision-making is gonna be both on EPA's part, as well as, you know, the Harbor Development Commission and Apex under the Harbor Development Commission. You know, relating to what EPA's requests are, so.
I want to, before we move on to Ed, I want to just flag, we're going to close the meeting today talking about how these two things are synced up. How can EPA be proceeding with the design at a pace at which you're producing information and it's being reviewed? To say that we're going to wrap the design by the end of April is amazing to me. Dave, I just got to say up front, it took us 2 months to get to our second meeting, and you're saying in 2 months we'll be done?
So to be clear, this is the original schedule.
Okay.
And I think it would be a good idea for us to set a goal, a kind of a goal for how we get these two processes to sync up. But I think getting through the list of topics and explaining what it is, the basis of the design is, you know, I think that can be done this week.
Okay.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping.
I think there's two things going on right now, because Apex is preparing the schedule, and Apex can proceed with the design based on the information that we generate and our relations directly with the EPA. Now, there's also a public process going on, and the input from the public process and review of the public process and relationship with EPA is also another concern. So when we update our schedule, it's basically, you know, how quickly can we get this done? Clearly, there's going to be other issues that come up, and that may affect the schedule as well, so it's something to keep under consideration. It's really just, you know, what's our plan in regards to data collection, and how long will design take, and then when could construction start based on how quickly design could theoretically take. Clearly, there's another aspect to that, and that's something that we'll have to continue to discuss.
Right.
So.
Excuse me. There are some aspects that we don't know, we won't know, but it's going to be the best guess. God knows what the Congress is going to do in the next 24 months, right?
Of course.
Sort of a thing.
Absolutely.
So, but it's the best guess of what you have available to you right now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's purely based on an engineering process.
Right.
It's devoid of at present, the mechanical, how long does it take to do various aspects of design, et cetera. So you're correct in that we need input from EPA and others in order to, you know, modify.
Can we, let's try to get through all of our stuff.
Sure.
I want to make sure we get from there. The next section of the agenda here, after we get through the presentations, is all open for discussion. So if we could, clarifying questions now would be best.
So hello everybody, I'm Ed Anthony Washburn. I'm the acting executive director for the Harbor Development Commission. So our role on this project is we've already constructed 3 CAD cells, as Dave said. The CAD cell number 1 and 2, and also the barrel pit. And those were all for navigational dredging, so they're incredibly important to the economics of the port. Without these CAD cells, dredging all of the harbors, which is part of the remedy, so it's still cleaning up the harbor, but it's doing it in a way that everybody can afford it, and we can get the sort of investment, we can get the large freighters, and also do some of the smaller dredging projects throughout the harbor. So we started, and the range of PCBs in the existing CAD cells are from 10 to 80 parts per million, so it's of similar, as Dave pointed out too, they're of similar composition. In order for the CAD cell program to continue, we have to look at these, we have to look at the DMMP and figure out where the best sites are for these CAD cells. They're incredibly important, obviously, to the economics of the port and to the growth. So, we have future dredging. We need to do harbor maintenance dredging, which is incredibly important for our existing facilities, but also in the future with South Terminal and things like that. All of these projects will require CAD cells. So the Lower Harbor CAD cell could interfere with future existing CAD cell construction, and also as the governing body for the Port of New Bedford, we also control the traffic in and out of the area. So it's in our best interest to be at the table for where the Lower Harbor CAD cell is constructed. So our role is we've been granted funds to help design and construct the CAD cell, and once it's constructed, the EPA will take ownership and they'll operate and close the Lower Harbor CAD cell. So it'll still be monitored and everything will be looked at by EPA. At some point in the future, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, through the DEP, will take over operations from the EPA. And it's important to note that the HDC will not operate or maintain this CAD cell. So once it's constructed, our involvement in the project will end.
Just a quick clarifying point. When you consider operation, it's not operation, it's operation and maintenance. The thing will be capped, it will be done. At that point, we're not taking any more material in a CAD cell that's now capped. So that's where the state would step in, for the DEP.
And monitoring?
Yes, operation and maintenance, which includes monitoring, that's right.
Paul, is it going to be capped as fast as the one at the south end that you have that hasn't been capped for several years?
We can discuss that at some point. That needs to be designed.
Several years from now.
I've expressed my opinion that because we're now still dredging, you don't want to cap these until they fully consolidate, and the deposition in any of these areas is a positive deposition, so anything that goes into it actually is still a little bit contaminated. So the fact that they're open now is still, in my opinion, engineering-wise, a good thing. And the longer you wait to fill them, the more consolidation you get, and the better they are. Because in the end, this is not a clean harbor. You'll get some minor contamination still being placed on this clean material, even at the end of the process. So the longer you wait, from an engineering and environmental and a public health perspective, the better. So that would be the DEP's perspective. But yes, they will be capped in a relatively short period of time, because there'll be such a generation of sand from the next generation of these things that will be needed. This is not, he's just talking about EPA stuff. The navigation will need future CAD cells, so we need to get rid of the sand as well. That's a consideration. They will be capped at the appropriate time when they consolidate.
And the monitoring of the CAD cells we currently have in the harbor have, they've shown that the sediment, when you open the scow and with the silk curtains up and everything, that it performs exactly the way that we modeled it.
Just one further thing. One of them has been partly capped already. Is that correct? Yeah, so we do have some experience with trying to cap them.
Well, and also, Army Corps has 35 years of data with regard to open ocean disposal, and the use of CAD cells is a bit more recent, but not extremely more recent. And the DAMOS program has monitored open ocean disposal, and what they have found, even in areas that are outside of New Bedford Harbor, is that material, once it's placed into this type of depression, stays there. And actually there's deposition that happens on top. That was something that Paul was generally saying. It doesn't float away. It has a tendency to stay in place, and additional material tends to accumulate on top of it.
But Chet, you're talking open ocean. How far away from a residential community are these cells that you're referring to?
The Army Corps is going to give a presentation on loss from the CAD cell or containment within the CAD cell. And probably,
right.